Hello and welcome to Code Harvest. In this video we are going to be creating a slideshow of images or products, and we're going to be using HTML, CSS, but mostly JavaScript to create the slideshow. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so now we're going to minimize our page, and over here we're just going to create a new div and we're going to call its ID products display. And underneath we're just going to include a title as well as a little borderline that we're going to be designing with CSS later on. Alright, so as you can see, we see the title but we do not see any borderline, nor is the height proper, so we're going to fix this in our CSS file. Done. As you can see, the elements are at the left of the screen, but we want it to be at the center of the screen, so we're just going to include a flex display, make sure that the flex direction is in a column, and we're going to make sure that the items are placed to the center of the screen or page. Alright, and we also want a little bit of spacing since we removed all spacing, all margin and padding, so we're just going to say we want our margin top to be maybe 4M, and the same with the bottom as well. Alright, so now that we're done with that, it looks very pretty. So now we're going to head over to our HTML file, and in here we're going to create another div in which we're going to include the products container, where we'll have all our products, the slideshow, and the buttons as well. Alright, so as you can see, we already include our container, the two buttons which will present previous and next, and the class and the div where all our elements will be and our slideshow will be. So first, let's head over to Bootstrap and get an SHV of these two arrows. We have already included our buttons from Bootstrap, so all we're going to do is design our buttons. Alright, so now that we're done with Bootstrap, with the Bootstrap icons, we're going to be including the slideshow. So we're going to be creating a class under products list, and we're just going to be designing the box. So each box, which each of them will have an image as well as the text, a little rating as you've seen from the beginning of this video, and also a button called Add to Cart. Alright, so now you can see the box has been put well, and as well as the arrows next to it. But what we're going to do is change our image properties to make sure that it only covers around 70 to 75% of the box. So we're just going to change the width and the height properties. Okay, so now we're going to be editing our product sections, so section 1 and section 2, and we're just going to make sure that section 1, which will be where the title as well as the ratings will be, will have a certain amount of padding, a certain amount of margin, to make sure that it looks nice and well. And we're also going to edit section 2, which is going to have the price as well as the add to cart. Alright, now we're going to be adding the title, the ratings, as well as the price, and we're going to add that through JavaScript. We're going to use local storage for this, but before that we're going to design our add to cart since it looks a little too bland. Alright, so as you can see, it looks much better. So now we're going to scroll up, and inside of head we're just going to add our script and the DOM and our event listener. So we're going to set our indexes for each of these products. So I've already created this constant, and we have all of our variables, and I put it under title and price. So now we're just gonna type in local storage, and we want to set all of these items and store them in our API. So we're just gonna call it products, and we want them to keep our products. Now the thing is, it only stores string, so we're just gonna use JSON dot stringify. Oops, okay. And products, we want to stringify products. So we're just gonna test this, and we're going to get our items. So now we're just gonna say console.log and give me what X has, so what the API has stored. So if we check our console, you can see that it has stored our product successfully. In fact, we're just going to parse this. So alright, so now it has been parsed, and now it looks lovely and it looks much more arranged. Alright, so now that we know that our object has been received successfully from our API, or our local storage, we're just going to copy and paste this product 9 times, since we have 9 products. Alright, so now that we have all of our products pasted, so we can see that we have 9 products. Now what we're going to be doing is creating a loop in which for each box we want to store in our title as well as our price. Since we have not added that yet, as you can see, it is completely empty, as well as box P, which presents price. So now we're going to be creating a loop, and we're just gonna, so for each box it's gonna be assigned to a title and price respectively. Alright, so as you can see, we all of our images have been removed, the ones that we added manually. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to keep product img, this div right here, empty, as we're going to be adding the images through JavaScript. So in here, we're just going to, inside the loop, we're just going to copy this and we'll paste it into the new line, and over here we're just going to replace that with product img. Oops. And we're just going to add our image tag with the source. So now what we're going to be doing is fixing our title, since it does not look bold enough, it does not look big enough. So let's head over to a CSS and change that. You can see now the image has been added, and we'll just add a little margin bottom of 10 pixels, and we'll reduce that to 6 pixels. Okay. Alright, so now as you can see, the images look too close together, too compact, and also they don't look like they're at the center of the page. So we're gonna head over to our container, which we called product list, and here we're just gonna, not that, justify content, and we're gonna make sure that it is positioned at the center of the page. Okay, that looks great. And for product, we're just gonna add a margin, so left, right, up, and down of 30 pixels. And that looks much better. So another thing is we want the arrows to be closer to the image, so we want it to be like somewhere here, where half of it is outside of the box and half of it is inside the box. So now we're going to work on the JavaScript aspect. So what we're going to be doing is creating a slideshow that shows or displays 3 images per slide. So for example, for this slide, it's just going to show these 3, and then the next slide there, it's going to show 3 different images. Okay, so here we're just going to create a new variable, and we're going to let num be 0. And another thing that we're going to be doing is we want to collect the screen width to make sure that our slideshow is responsive, and we want to make sure that we and using the screen widths, we want to calculate the number of cards that are displayed, or the number of boxes that are displayed. So for example, in this screen size, there are 3 being displayed. Let's say for another one such as iPad mini or nest hub, there are two images shown. So we want to collect the width of the screen so that we can actually calculate how many boxes are displayed. So now let's get the screen width, which we'll just call screen width, and is in screen.width. And now we're going to create our calculation. So we're going to call this cards. I'll call it cards displayed. All right, and here I'm just going to say we want the width, the screen width, and we want to divide it by the size of our box. So it's over here, and it's 300 pixels, and that's going to be the case every time. So we're just going to divide it by 3, but we're just going to add 100 pixels because of the spacing, the extra spacing. So we're going to add 100 pixels to the width. All right, so now we're going to check our console. So if we click on inspect and we check the number that we get a big number. So I believe okay, so this needs to be in brackets. And now if we check again, we get 2.56. All right, so that means there are two cards shown. So we're going to use the JavaScript function called parseInt to make sure that it rounds down. So if we round that down, we get two cards. So let's check on another device. This one's the same case, 2. Let's check for a phone. If we reload that, we get 1 card, which is exactly what is expected. And if we remove this and we reload this, and we should get 3 cards. All right, so now we're going to be collecting the list of all of the products. And now we're going to get the length of the product. So now we're going to create a new function, and we're going to call this function next slide. And basically what we want to do is create an infinite loop of images sliding from one slide to the next. And it's going to go forwards instead of backwards. We're going to create a function for backwards, but for now let's create one for forward. So now let's create a loop. Alright, so the logic that we've used here is let I equal to num instead of 0. So the reason why is when, for example, when num is at 0, so when we're at the first slide, we want to get 0 and 1. So the current box as well as the box next to it. If we have 3, we want to get the 2 remaining ones. If we have 4, this being displayed, then we want to get the current card as well as the 3 next to the current card. So now what we're going to add is product list I, and we want to get the remainder from product length dot style dot display equals to none. All right, so before we continue, we're going to be copying this and pasting this over here. Oops. Okay, and we're going to change the property to flex. So in this case, we wanted to first display the first 3 or 2 or 1 image. It depends on the screen width. In this case, we have 3, so we wanted to display the first 3 images, and then once the timer starts, which we'll add very soon, once the timer starts, we wanted to remove those images, so display will be set to none, and then show the next cards. So in order to get the next cards, we're just going to say num equals to the current card, the current card plus the cards that are being displayed. Okay, so for example, if we're at this slide, so the current slide, we'll call this slide 0, and we wanted to move to slide 1. So now, for example, num is 0, then we want to get the next first box, which will always be positioned to the left side. So in order to get that, we are setting num. So for example, if num is 0, we want the next num to be the first box in the next slide, if that makes sense. Because, for example, we're getting 0, we're not getting 1 and 2, but only 0, and so on. So now what we're going to do is create another loop, and we just want to display them as the products. As the first slide is going to be displayed to none, we want to display the next slide. So here we're just going to copy this actually, and paste it here. Alright, and the last thing that we're going to be adding is we're going to set interval. So this is going to be our loop to next slide, and we want it to occur or continue for every 5 seconds. Okay, so there was a problem and I was trying to fix it. It took me several minutes, but finally we got the solution. We just realized that our line of code was not included inside of DOM, so nothing was being registered, nothing was being processed. And now that we figured that out, let's tap that and make sure that every item in SLIDESHOW is set to none, is not displayed, but only the specified cards. Alright, so when we reload that, you can see that it starts with Royal Rain, White Bliss, and Natural Gold, then Aqua Leads, Virgin Whites, Marin Peace, so they're always different. So now that works. Alright, so now that we have that fixed, we're gonna go back to our CSS file, and one thing that we did not add is our navigation bar. A property that we have not added is we want the navigation bar to be fixed at the top of the page, so as we scroll down it should stay fixed permanently. So all we needed to do was change position from relative to fixed. Okay, so now that we have our next slide sorted, now we're going to be creating our next function, which is prev slide. So we're going to add the exact same logic. So we'd want to subtract that to minus. So for example, if it was 3, if the number is 3, 4, 5, so the first box is 3, we want to reduce that by the number of cards displayed, and in this case that would be 3, so 3 minus 3 would be 0, and we'd want to get the 2 other cards after 0, so 0, 1, 2. Now the problem is when num is 0, 0 minus 3 would be negative 3, but there is no card that is at negative 3, so what we'd have to do is we'd have to reassign this. So we'd have to first check if num is less than 0. It will always be negative 3 in this case, but if num is less than 0, if it is a negative number, then we'd want to assign num to be the length of these cards, and so we'd have to actually subtract this by cards displayed. So in this case there are 3 cards displayed, so we'd want to get from, so num, and let's say num was 0, so and the number of cards were 9, so 9 minus 3 would be 6. So now we're gonna test and make sure that it actually works by changing our function to prev slide. So if we have that reloaded, we want it to go backwards, and it seems like it works, and it should take us back to Royal Rain. Okay, great. Alright, so now that we have that set and we've changed that back to next slide since we wanted to go forward by default, now we're going to be working on our buttons. So for example, if we click on prev button here, that's the name of the ID. The name of the ID is prev button. So if we click on this, it should go backwards, and if you click on this, it should go forwards. So we're just going to add a new event listener. So when we load this, when we load that, and if you want to go back, it goes back. If you go forward, it goes forward. So it works successfully. Alright, so it seems like we are done with our slideshow. We can go forward, we can also go back. So now we're going to change one property in products display. So products display is basically the whole div. We can see that the height is a little too much, and we did keep a fixed height, so we want to remove that. That was just to help us to envision what we want to have. But now that we have what we have, we've created what the slideshow, we don't need it anymore. So now it looks classic, it looks nice. And I was actually going to add a few stars to represent some ratings, so like 5-star ratings, but I decided against it. So I'm going to be removing each div that has the class of stars, but please do comment down below if you think otherwise. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do to make our code less redundant is, as you can see here, when we scroll down, we're basically saying the same thing. We include the same classes and IDs and buttons for each product. It's the same thing here and here 9 times. So instead of just copying and pasting this, we're going to remove everything, all of these until here. We're going to delete them, and they're all in the class of product list. So we're going to scroll up, and up here we're going to remove that, and we're going to create a new ID. Okay, and now we're going to be creating a for loop. So we're going to do something like this. Okay, and over here we're just going to say for product list HTML, we just want to include the syntax. Okay, so when we have a look at our at our page, we can see that all of the furnitures are loaded as if nothing happened when we actually used a loop in JavaScript. Alright, so now we are at the end of this video. We have been able to make a slideshow by using mostly JavaScript. We've also been able to make our code less redundant, been able to make it shorter so that our HTML does not look longer by using JavaScript, and now we can go forward if we'd like or backwards, and we can also hover around our add to cart features or buttons. And yeah, so please do give this video a like, comment down below on any questions or suggestions, and subscribe if you haven't already, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.